Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question. That's sort of the feeling you have of defeat, failure, sort of wonkiness, and sort of like you're trudging through. You're in an uncomfortable stage, a really guttural sort of feel bad, about yourself, about your opportunities, feeling a loss or grief of some sort. I missed out on something. And how this, becomes sort of turned further inward as a result of previously and always habitually, pleasing someone significant to you outside of yourself, coping with, dealing with, honoring, respecting. All you are doing double and triple time when it comes to your attachment bond, get together, how you knew it, your buddy, the love of your life, your soulmate, however you grew within to define that. So that's where we need to get to, and that's owning your truth. And furthermore, the painful part, which is defining your truth. And we're going to get to that later on. But the real remarkable thing is that when you study psychology, someone's truth is established really within the first 7 years of life, meaning that you're as a child. So we're not going to do like a deep, heavy, oh my God, let's like go way back, but I'm talking about like child development and how it pertains to you as an adult now and moving forward, and what healing feels like and release of letting go. It's a whole sort of undoing of a vicious cycle that is required when you sort of merge these two together at a real questionable crossroads of your life. You're like, I do not want to be at this crossroad in this situation with this person, with me feeling this way. This feels rotten. This is too extreme. It's not healthy. It's resulting in lumps, bumps, bruises, not always outwardly, but inwardly. And, and feeling that it's difficult to sort of live through these, come, to a closure or a resolution. Because, with one of the tactics, or I would say more apt sort of relational styles, if you will. But so in other words, but hearkening back, just to know that if you can remember sort of like your truth. In other words, they say the truth will set you free. Well, let's question a couple things here. Let's get right down to it. When you're feeling free, are you feeling, your authentic self? Are you feeling your truth? Are you feeling like this is what it's all about, and you're actually vitalized? You're actually like juiced up. You're actually revving up your batteries. This is what we play for. Is like with the football guy, what he'd be go running out in the field like, yeah, this is, it's like what gets you pumped up, what gets you juiced up, like, and how did this person play a vital role? Like, and well, not only this person, but this first 7 years of your life where your truth was formed. Sort of keep that on the side or back burner while we talk about the now, and sort of how that your truth, which could have been based on pleasing others or being controlled by others to an extent that it was not really healthy. There was enmeshment. There might have been abuse there. Enmeshment meaning there was no boundary for you. You were not permitted a true definition or clarity of self that was based in calm, that was based in your strength, which requires a boundary, which requires, it's an energetic quantum boundary, which means it exists in the whole of space, in the whole of being, in all that is. So there is an existential being point where you're going to be revitalized, made stronger, living in your strength, not being squeezed out, not being, sort of enmeshed, not being required to lose your sense of self that resulted in really a lot of chaos then for self, because if your truth, and then we're going to sort of get back into the narcissist crazy making, which is their relationship style, is to be all over the place, is to be chaotic, unpredictable, springing a spring, popping a wheel off it, losing a spoke, nails are coming out of them, they're like falling out all over, and that might be their endearing part of them, is that they're like this, but they require unconsciously a lot of energy, support, psychic energy to be in this sort of cohabit, you know. And when I say with, meaning it could very well be a relationship, but not what you can deem as sort of free of stress and a true and healthy relationship. And you might not have ever been there, so it really is important to sort of part the waters when we're talking about sort of like, because your healing has to come from a new place than that relationship. So that's why you're here. That's why we need to sort of get to a better perspective and understanding that's with love. I mean, totally unconditional love for this and respect, not only for that, but for yourself, because oftentimes that which we just mentioned, unconditional love, that had not been bestowed upon you. In other words, where with a boundary, which means when you were different from the other, where you were different, special, you had maybe spoke a different language, spoke a different love language. Maybe you needed more tactile and they were loving you from the mind. You know, they didn't have that sort of tactile love language, and maybe you feel deprived, so you ended up like giving them a lot to make up for it, because you might have even spoke to yourself, and it's like, this is where a lot of the recurring problems come in, and sort of, you know, getting a grip on a narcissist crazy making in a good reframe perspective, which means this is something I can make composite, grow, digest, and process. So I get these types of people, that these types of people exist. It is their style, their makeup, their composition, whatever it is, their formula, their chemistry, their who they are. You might have tried to think that if you were with them, that because you gave, they gave, that they were similar to you. No, it can be a factual matter that you can be very different from people where you want to be very similar. Meaning you know, but you are, you know, so part of learning is like learning about yourself. And like, this is where, you know, it's very painful to learn about yourself and living in your truth. Hitherto, when what you were living was problematic, not maybe for them, but more so for you, when you're dealing with narcissist crazy making, because they sort of scoop people up in their entrails of their personality. They're like personalities with long trains, long gowns, long, what are piano players when they sit on coattails, you know. These people tend to absorb and have around them a lot of supply. They're very, you know, they can be very active in the social profile, and, you know, so which is all well and good, but oftentimes in their behavioral style, to people who aren't sort of always validating them in that way, in other words, areas that would require work, self-awareness, empathy, and sort of a selflessness, that experience doesn't sort of come to a narcissist naturally, I believe. That is not their MO. That is not their wheelhouse. That is not their, as Christopher Titus would say, my ice cream truck. You know, that is not your hose that you drink out of. That is not your, you know, what you want to be sort of like your liberty, Statue of Liberty of life, like holding the, you know, you're holding something together, like, but at a certain point, you know, relationships don't have to be based on this clinginess, because that will deplete you and oftentimes not be a non-issue for these other people, because they live on a whole different chemical exchange within their own tissues, within their own blood work, within their own thought MRI. You know, they can live amongst a lot of charge up and clutter. And that's sort of what they use to sort of magnetize people to them and get people sort of servile, if you will, to them, or sort of, uh, responsive to their emotional needs, tics, and their idiosyncrasies, which require a lot of energy from the other party, i.e. you, to keep up with and learn. It's like you're getting a syllabus for this day one. You're sitting down and go, oh boy, this is based on, and you're usually sort of letting go of a lot of your own needs, because it's like maybe it was an exciting, funny relationship, almost like your life was just going along, cruising along, and here comes this new character. It's like a new ad that comes on the TV. You're like, what? And then you're glued all in, and you're like, I want that toy. I want that relationship, or I have to do this to survive on the other end of the spectrum. So you might have then developed simultaneously an attachment disorder sort of within yourself, because of the programming style that the narcissist sort of has on their emotional buttons, meaning like you learned to code, like you knew how to code and like deal with them based on either survival, necessity, googly eye love, or some sort of other chemical draw that you felt like somehow this was exciting and it got your own juices brewing, bubbling, simmering, seething. You now need to get a handle on the dial on it a little bit. So because the narcissist always likes to crank up the volume, especially where supply is sitting, and they're going to flag their show, their coattails to get people's attention, and like, ooh, they have this gravitas, but they don't respect the same gravitas of others, especially those who they take on as supply. This is where one of the initial big ouch wounds comes in. I mean, we're talking with like Stone Age club in the gut, life changer, game changer. However, change of your name to them being in your full attention is generally, I would say, maybe the initial encounter with them. And if this occurred early in your life, then you might say, well, this is my go-go train, this is my golf cart, this is my go-to now. I have to formulate survival and adapt my own boundaries, which are undefined, and then in standards, which mean to the point where they obscure yours, which mean they throw muck, they throw insults. See, a narcissist, for those people, who they consider supply, really, unfortunately, a narcissist tends to really objectify people, where other people who they attract are generally unobjectifying. They want to help. They have a big heart. They want to listen. They want to be there better than anybody else for them. Or maybe they're the only one who learned sort of this narc code, word salad, or whatever. You learn to accept the commas, or the pauses in their style and laugh. Like you get programmed and conditioned how to be reactive, how to be basically an audience, more than an actual individual with all that it takes. They don't ever kind of reflect back to you that you stack up, you're good, and that this is okay, and that you experience sort of a truth of calm. And so a lot of people, their truth might have always been sort of uprooted in this root of fear, meaning, and that is a very unsustainable yet very advertisement friendly lifestyle. Always living, reaching, grabbing with your eyes, grabbing with your hands, grabbing with a quick order, to grab something. These are the people that are always sort of like, they can be the first early adopters of things. They like to be the one in charge, the one in center, the one driving, the one listened to. It doesn't matter if it's in a family, a workplace, a group of 3, 5, 10, 2, they're going to do that, and they're usually going to be accompanied by somebody and not just representing themselves. In other words, you get a lot more than you asked for upon initial eyeful with these people. In other words, there's generally going to be like an entourage of people who are puff up daddies for these people, or pump it up mamas, or whoever that these people sort of have. I think as a narcissist tends to use people and sort of take advantage. And for them, I think that they think that this is the norm, and that there's nothing wrong with it, and that they are sort of above other people, special, more worthy of. And they convince others that that is true, or because of other specific situations, because of their crazy making, which can be on a huge continuum from the angry, where they have a real, either playful, sardonic, sort of like they might like have a sarcastic blow up that makes everybody laugh, or they might be really angry when they're not playing anymore. When you see a freak out, a blowout, somebody's got sauce on the floor, the window, the door handle, and they're off somewhere to go. They've flung off the handle, literally. They might have food flying, stuff going in their car, throwing chairs, popping out a window, this really elaborate display of an armoire of really sort of insults that they can then hurl to people, and then say that they have to go because they think that they're on for a better one, but then they always come back because they're going to pop up and sort of be triggered when you start to get too close, just when you think, and that for them means getting along. So I think the narcissist, and as well as the cycle, they're a whole nother situation. But in terms of sort of, and then your truth, which means you can be a real good fit then for people who take advantage, who leave you out, who want to just get something out of you and not give anything back in return. And that can be really, if you don't have that, it can lead to a lot of disequilibrium, meaning feeling off balance. And if you're in that state long enough, like Joe Dispenza says, if you're in a state repeated over several minutes, several hours, and then reinforced again through several days, which then results in a pattern then of what could be several months or years for you, which you had you were exposed to behaving alongside with, and had expectations, and really, and how to align it. It's a real physical alignment issue. When we talk about sort of this enmeshment, because it causes you to be off. It causes you to be emotionally, spiritually, physically out of balance, out of alignment. Your shoulders off, your back is off, your knee, your neck, you don't feel that you hold yourself in a state of calm, in a state of confidence, in a state of strength. Then instead you're more wobbly, you're more insecure, you're more trying to, throw more on the, you're trying to throw more whatever on top of the Band-Aid when that doesn't work, because your wound needs to be exposed, which means you need to be able to live your truth with validation, support, and equilibrium. That is not too much to ask out of life, but if your truth is contradictory to that, then you're going to be in this internal battle, this internal ricochet, which might feel out of control at first, because of the crazy making, which means let's just get to that real quick. What is crazy making? Where someone in your life, a situation, a person, a family, a culture, what have you, has a style of relating where they always need and want to be in control to your detriment to your being, to the sort of obliteration, non-validation, through their actions, through their means, through their wants progressively result in a breaking down and annihilation, almost like a wearing down little by little by little until it's just worn away. In other words, you're not equipped to then rebuild through your own common sense or because of being in alignment. Being in alignment from a state of calm and peace would be somewhat be required to say, "Ow, that hurts. That's too much for me. I can't carry that." Because if you carry a lot, you carry it internally. So, you know, you see, that's why people walking around, they've got big shoulder bags, big heavy things. Now it's going light, big light book. Oh wow, look at all the logos on that guy's leather bag. That guy's, the one to be like. Or look at, so they use, and they can use like a lot of symbols just to show like they're the one just to admire. Like, look at, look but don't touch, but let me touch you. So this sort of conglomerate of double standards that sets up a non-recognition in a non-validation in the physical causal sense, which means in the physical, where you're in your physical body, being where you are and then being met where you are, not always the other way around. That becomes in psychology what's known as a physical locus, an external locus of control. But so Dr. Joe Dispenza, he says, so a similar temperament repeated over a series of days and weeks, that becomes a mood. Okay, so in other words, you get into that mood and then you do that one thing that goes, "Oh man, I can't believe that," and you go back for more. You go back for more punishment. You go back for more scrutiny. You go back for more judgment and whatever reward. Surviving a companion, a family member, a teacher, you then sustain that for a little bit of time. In other words, you're using whatever you've got up your sleeves, and it can take a lot of psychic and physical energy to prompt and allow that conditioning. In other words, because they're sort of conditioning and training you to be validated for self-deprivation, which is a very unhealthy combo. If you were to put that together in like a chemistry, it would be a no-go. Like, this would be too caustic, meaning too toxic. It would be too much of a chemical, like a chemical burn. If you've ever had a burn, it would be like chemically, it's not good to the touch. It's crossing the boundary. It's evading a boundary. It's pervading something that should be there. And this causes as an outcome, in other words, as a byproduct, because it's a physical coming together. So there is going to be a release of energy, and that release of energy within you can have a negative, deleterious byproduct, which means you're sort of ingesting this caustic exhaustion, if you will. What they're putting out, you're able to take in almost like cigarettes. You're taking in this sort of air, if you will. I really want to sort of break it down to that, because you breathe it in with the lungs. You breathe, "Oh my gosh, okay, I can handle this," or you do a trade-off within yourself, and then you might sort of realize that you might have like a big store of energy, and then you find that you're always sort of supportive of them, but it is not two-way in return. They're not giving you support. They're not giving you the validation of who you are, and allowing you to be the center, allowing you to shine, allowing you just be without having to be under judgment, scrutiny, belittling, bewilderment, taught that you don't matter, taught that you don't exist, taught that you should be ignored, taught that you should be dismissed or minimized or shut up or just play along, or whatever it is. you are required to do, while letting go sort of that truth, that calm, that's more healthy, because that's coming from your strength. The crazy making is sort of a requirement that they require of others. In other words, there's not an equal playing field. The narcissist always wants it to be on level, to keep them at the advantage for some reason. This is part of the problem is that they always have to be and appear as if they are more important, or and then they'll always steal the thunder from whatever situation is going on. Someone has a graduation, well, guess what? They just have a newborn kitten that they have to bring over. That's more important. Someone just retired, and they're going to say, hey, we just got engaged, and that's going to take over. It can be a great family holiday. Next thing is about them and their photography skills and the greatest videos that they can show. It's supposed to be your birthday, and then you're talking about how you can help them in their business and recruit. So in other words, any sort of high moments that you should sort of have are, very superficial. They're not there with you. They don't have that recognition of the path, the work, the stumbles, the tears. Hey, we're here for you. Let's work together. There isn't sort of a true we or together. And that takes a lot of energy out of people to sort of love enough for the other, be cheery enough or whatever, or do enough. In other words, you're trained to sort of be supportive in certain ways and receive not equal positive in return. So your new normal sort of becomes dialed down as a result of this crazy making, this hecticness, so that then you're going to then push away your own strengths. Instead, people are going to tend to stay, and then Dr. Dispenza, so where did we not? So if that's repeated then over a series of months, it becomes a personality trait. In other words, so if you don't pull yourself out of it, this reinforcing a mood, a tendency to then become, a temperament, and then that reinforced over time becomes a personality trait, which reinforced over a longer period of time becomes who you are. And then I'm a victim. I'm and then, you're just sort of giving up. You're canning yourself. You feel asphyxiated, overwhelmed. It's unsustainable. And unfortunately, that sort of narcissist relationship, you sort of hit it there. You sort of become in that place where it's not going to work. Something is not working. And usually the narcissist is going to go on their way, and you're going to be sitting there, what is going on? What did I not do? And then you're sort of, faulting yourself, and then people tend to then reinforce and then feed this sort of defeatist attitude, and then that attitude repeated over time becomes a temperament, like, man, and then they reinforce this and then get into maybe some bad behaviors or some self-sabotage. And then this self-sabotage over time, if they continue it, if they don't get above it, if you don't get above it, if you don't reframe it, if you don't see, where the brook was dammed and where you can go from here, then you're going to be feeling really in a funk, and you're going to feel that you then feel isolated. And then you're going to, if you don't shake yourself out of it, you could be there for 5-10 years. If you're that in the youth of your life, that's one thing. As you get older, you can't make up that time. You can't bounce back and go, let me live, 5 lost years in a couple of weeks. You can't put that kind of pressure on yourself. You can't have that sort of thought pattern with yourself. That's the defeatist. So you might have been carrying this elephant along with you, this pressure. rather than as a positive, meaning coming from within and coming from a sort of calm first. In other words, that's generally, if you've been attacked a lot, then that's going to feel like really bad zone to be in. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You have to get strong. You have to look through the previous videos. You have to get into your affirmations. You have to get clear on your I am, and realize that oftentimes that self-sabotage can lead you really far away from your goals and where you want to be. And then, sort of certain seasons of your life will then come through and say, it's like, okay, this is the first summer I feel a little bit healed. And what is healed? I'm feeling stronger and I'm feeling calm, and that is okay. And even though this was not validated, verified, or valued, or so it was felt by this other party, it is okay for me to get calm, strong, and have a presence and be, and sort of expand in a sort of and settle into yourself, settle into life a little bit, rather than being absorbed by the exorbitant. Decompress and de-stress. It's okay to go that direction. The narcissist lifestyle does not reinforce that in you. In fact, I feel it's a complete antithesis, refractory. It's a no-go. It cannot coexist. Einstein, you cannot simultaneously prepare for and prevent for war. I mean, you can't, if you continue to nurture how you define yourself by that relationship, that's because that's showing that you have like a wounded inner I am. And that's because you didn't get the validation of who you truly are by maybe someone important, or someone who was important to you, someone who you felt and meant something, was significant, and you valued and you cherished that relationship. But there was a different style of relating that didn't meet you in the middle, where there was sort of being, and so that you can't define yourself by only those relationships. That can be scary, because for people who have defined themselves by sort of negative validation, sort of like, I would call it just like a sort of self, a sort of bias of self, that you're not as worthy, or like deep down, even though it's hard for you to admit it, that because of this relationship, part of the components that you have had then really refined and sort of been made part of you, that you have to refine, is your definition of yourself, your identity, your I am, in your being, as it relates to this person. So in other words, coming to a full circle, which is a full healing within, where you can stand within and sort of have a more full processing of a definition, and specifically as it means to what are your boundaries, and what is calm, and what is then my strength, in defining myself with enthusiasm from there, in that standpoint, and being okay with being clear and defining more positively a sense of self now, rather than a victim, I couldn't help it, and sort of like living in a reverberation, or like a lack of control. Sort of, they're trying to you're trying to get shaken off of their whatever, their coattails, their spaghetti sauce, their guacamole, their pop, whatever it is that they were sharing with you. You have to sort of get off the whole thing and just sort of see, and then they might want to come back, but you have to have a healed mechanism within, which means you're not buying that you're less than them. You're not falling for it anymore. You're not taking that into your being wholeheartedly, nostalgically. Nostalgically, you're looking back and you're saying, I am in the fullness and radiance of my being. I am there, and I embrace and cling to the strength of what I value within, even if they didn't reflect that, think it was funny, stupid, hilarious, an irritant, made you seem unattractive. This is, so you have to embrace certain parts of your being that you love, and you feel joy and you feel freedom. I mean, and that's, in growth and sustenance of your being. And it will take value, which means it'll take on a shine, a panache of its own. And it'll really help you, because it'll give you stamina in your walk and in your journey of life. Where, it's okay for you to test out the waters. It's okay for you to trust yourself and be confident, even though you might have been taught, or it might have been mirrored back to you, that you're bonkers, whatever, when that is not the case. They don't have the ability to have empathy. It's an inability for them. They're not going to waltz into the relationship and say, hey guy, hey girl, guess what? I have a dysfunction kink within me. It's called I lack empathy, and I'm pretty much into my own needs. Do you want to get together now? They don't announce that. It's sort of, what and see, the problem is they get reinforced for being that way, but oftentimes that has a negative impact on others, especially those who are close to them, because those are the people they want to, as you grow, and they want to keep the gap wider, because they want to be able to keep that definition of, I'm better than, and that you have to be, by virtue of their style of relating, you are required to be defined by the negative. How can you then ever grow beyond their definition of you, their judgment, their need requirement? That your life is not that small, and it's very important and difficult to realize that, even though they make it seem like you've got television only on them and their needs, that might have engulfed you. That's what we call enmeshment, when there isn't a respect of your boundaries, which means who you are, not as an extension of them, not how they expect you to be or what they want to see in you, but who you truly are, and that they give you that presence and validation unconditionally, which means it's not based on any judgment. It's not based on any temperament or label, that they have created a font that defines you, which you don't, that's not who you are. They're not giving you a chance. They're gonging you out even before you even get a chance to go on stage. They've said your position is eliminated even when you show up, but they want you to show up anyway, because you laugh, you cook, you hug, you clean, you write, you do whatever, you do something for them. And they hang around the people who can do something for them. Hey, guess what? But it's okay to have relationships and do things for each other, but not have to live as a coagulant extension of a needy person's requirements, because it's not sustainable. And most people feel that they are jealous or envious, or they can't see clearly. We've got to get clear on a couple things, and take it a notch down and get used to feeling different about yourself. That it might be a challenge to, and so that's really what the recovery date is about. It's sort of like getting that message, and in the flip second, committing to the goal. So anytime you want strength, you require commitment. Okay, if you and you need to understand commitment and what it looks like. Just like, let's say you need to lose a certain mood state that's holding you back. You feel very held back because of this annihilation of boundaries. So in other words, you don't know how to extend and manage your own boundaries. So the good news is that you have the power. You have the control mechanism. You have a huge, fascinating part of yourself that can heal. Not only physically does your body heal, like if you scrape your knee, break a wrist or something, but your emotional body is very much, I feel like, the same way. But it's the emotional body is more like an exchange of feelings, chemicals, emotions, which these all sort of put a value to something. An important value for you, togetherness, having a family, sharing, whatever it is, the value, eating, living, becoming creative, becoming parents, becoming homeowners, becoming business owners, whatever, you had that, commitment. They're not showing up in the same way chemically. They're of a whole different plus minus eons. I mean, they're like a sludge coming in, and you're sort of like, you're not binary. You're not plus and minus, black and white, good or bad. You're not on these huge, ends of the, pendulum that oftentimes they want you to reach and grab to. You're trying to please them. How does that feel in the body? Let's do it now. I mean, the pleasing them dance. Is it you're trying to show them how good a dancer you are, how good a listener you are, how good a cook you are, how good you can wash their car, how good you can become who they want you to be. And my God, they might ask you to be, something you're not. They might want you to be a party animal, and you don't want to be. They might want you to be a Harley rider. You're not all about that. They might want you to be a foodie and spend all sorts of money for, a 1 ounce shrimp on a cucumber with a special flour on it. You're not into that. In other words, you can't meet this. And there's a, it's kind of like with a narcissist. It becomes like an all them and all or nothing. It's very difficult. That's where the discarding comes. This is when they start to, I've got other, better things to do. And they'll make sure it's made clear in no uncertain terms that you're the one who's lacking. You can't keep up. I'm going to, throw you to the curb now and make sure, excuse me, and make sure, you feel it when you land. They're going to want, but you won't have a closure. That's a big problem. It's a big problem when two people aren't mature enough to unwind this problem. And to tell you the truth, in today's time and age, it's very difficult. The devices can get in the way. It can be a distraction. It can be a great place to hide behind. And part of the relationship, it might have taught you a new habit. You might have been then what we call habituated to sort of negative self-reflection, negative self-immersion. I need to change, or I no one will love me. I'm unlovable. I can't get this. You're feeling really down, hurt, socked in the gut, emotionally, ripped on the face with somebody's claws, hit up the chin. You can't talk, you can't speak, you're in a really bad place. And that's a really bad zone, that discard zone, or where you don't really know your boundaries and standards and live the life that you desire in a way that you don't feel that you have to be sabotaging things anymore, that you really are able to inhabit and feel safe. And that if some blacks try to come to, it's not going to bother you because you've already had everything, put in total, you've already endured hectic, crazy making, these expectations that you can barely make good on, that have been sort of feeling violationary and have violated, your soul, because, and you don't have the experience of what are my healthy boundaries? This is a great reduction to anxiety, by the way, which is knowing, like, what are my energetic boundaries? Either when I go and meet people, what changes do I need to say it's okay to engage people now? Now that I know my boundaries and I know that whatever happens, that I've got myself to check in through this, and I've got it here, and that's okay. To a degree that you can say that and feel that you have a safe place, and then a strong and calm place that you don't have to pour shame on yourself. You don't have to pour annihilation of insults and get yourself into a jam where you're not feeling articulate. You can find that your best self is oftentimes not really validated or brought out in these types of relationships, and time is your greatest commodity. Excuse me. What I'm trying to say is, if you think you have all sorts of time to go through this funk, we're going to make it up again, it's going to be even better than last time, now that I'm stronger, you could be further out of your truth. Excuse me. Out of your melody, out of the melody of your life. Excuse me. Out of sync with your reality that feels safe, because you didn't really get to experience this safe, growing, successful reality previously. So if you don't have that to call upon in your recent memory or within, then we need to grow this like a farm in the Midwest. If you want some of the best farmland in the U.S., you want to check out the Midwest. You want to check out our dairy state, Wisconsin. You want to go check out some of the beautiful farmland, harshland of Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. I mean, you got really beautiful, fertile land. That is what you want to claim within. Even though you don't know that, feel that, see that, the better than you, a better life, a new and better one, a shinier and stronger one, a happier and skip to Maloo one, some with a lot of hugs, kisses, and skip through the tulips, dashes through the moonlight. We're skinny dipping in your own pool. You're, frolicking through the desert sands of Africa together. You're combing the ends of the earth and going and making or doing all these different things that you would like to do, but that you have had in a secret treasure box that you have hid in your emotional attic. You have had it stored away in some unbeknownst corner of your unbeknownst emotional attic. You didn't know a strength reservoir and dream that you had, because it's been so buried away. You don't even have it on your radar. You don't even have being happy on your clock. You don't have going together on your blueprint. You don't even have it earmarked. You don't even have a calendar for it. It is so buried and hidden away in the basement, or your original drawing kit where you started it out and you folded it away and put it away in a paper bag somewhere, and you're going, gee, I didn't even know I have a strength. I didn't know I have an I am. I didn't know I had something positive that could be sustainable, that could be desirable, that could exist, because it's hard for you to know if you've had that damaged relationship. It's like you have a damaged self-esteem. It's the coil in there ain't working. The pilot light in the water heater ain't firing up. There ain't no blue flame ticking around in here letting me know the kettle's warm when I get home. There ain't no self-esteem pilot cooking. I can't even boil water, and say I'm good at that. I can't even pour coffee and say I'm good at doing that for another person. You feel the effect, it's like the after effect, the aftershock. What you've been through can be called traumatizing, traumatic. Even though the other person won't claim it for you, you are required to claim this for yourself. We're going to go for about an hour. Do you guys like an hour? I'm going to go an hour, I guess, because there's so much to this. And sort of that sort of obliteration of your being. So it's a be state, okay? It's a healthy, good, oh, we are in Hawaii with both of our feet walking side by side together. Oh, wait, we are in that log cabin in the wood that we rented in Utah that we thought would be so cool. Or we're going to South Dakota, some of the most majestic land we have in the United States, to see the Badlands, or to go camping in Colorado in the Rockies, or something really next level. Next level I am. We are coming back to the I am, because it is that area of the emotional body. Even call it a nucleus. If you remember back in science class studying a cell, and there's a cell. Okay. Here's the cell. And then they always said there was this thing, and it's the powerhouse. Oh, I hope I get this right, science teachers. Or it was the nucleus. You know, you have the cell, and then you have the nucleus. Remember, you've got trillions and trillions of cells, but even in each cell is sort of the nucleus. It sort of has everything, and you know, it sort of creates. It creates, and then there's all sorts of other stuff around there. It sort of helps everything else, the mitochondria, the energy centers, all the DNA, RNA, all that T cells, cell plasm, iron, bone marrow, whatever, all those stuff, all the different cells that make you up. So the cell, the nucleus. So, you know, and realize, you know, that there's this way of being and moving and existing. It becomes existential. So kind of like the floor plan, the floor disco. I mean, maybe your I am is all disco, starting out disco from your floor. Maybe you had your I am is on Formica floating walls, floors, and your disco, that's your I am, and that's a positive. But if your I am, you know, down to the cell is like pumping out, you know, cancer, and saying I'm negative, and it's going to create a cell, I'm terrible, I'm too needy, and you're defining yourself by the negative, you're going to create a lot of electric and a lot of cell activity and a lot of sort of everything throughout your body, not only your physical, visceral, like, which affects your digestion. You can, these emotions and these excessive emotional needs, these can override your normal healthy digestion. You can get a knot in your stomach. You can make yourself sick. You can vomit because you're so scared. You can have nausea and vomiting if you have a lot of stress. You can give yourself these butterflies in the stomachs, the works out of whatever end. This can be really made to be, if we're talking about your I am, so that nucleus that sort of everything else springs forth from. And the existential, I mean, in the being, like plop down your butt, it's all there, stand on your feet, and have a gravitas of your own, okay, in alignment where you're in dignity, and your I am feels a lot different. Your shoulders are back. It's okay to expose the front area, because that's where there's a lot of emotional exchange, okay? If you're always like this, oh boy, you're hiding a lot of emotional stuff. That's, you know, that's getting more the objective, okay? Why are we so far away? Everybody's saying. Oh man. Okay, so what the sitch is on this, okay, so then you might have a lot of selves. Oh, look at me and admiring me. Pay attention to my needs out here. Pay attention to my schedule. Pay attention to my smile and what's reinforcing. If you put this, if you realize that there's been a lot going on of, of your own adaptations and adjustments that you feel is in the name of love for all these others outside of you, and then your I am starts, oh, it's all about them, then you're going to become a composite being, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says. With that, let's say if that happens on the first day, oh wow, look at them. For your parents, they smile and laugh when you go get them a beer at age 5. Next thing you know, you're continuing to do that, mixed drinks for them at 12. You're getting a foot, you're getting a foot rub. Man, you're going to go get a pillow for their foot. You're going to go get them a special gift, because as long as they're happy, you're happy. That's what you learn. If you learn, on that experience repeated over, several hours, that can become, pretty significant. And then again the next day, and that's rehearsed and reinforced. And reinforced meaning you got a smile, you got a touch, you got a connection, you got a family member, you got your shelter, you got your, your place in the lineup, you got whatever it was, then you would continue. But then the self-sacrifice can turn into self-sabotage if that vicious cycle is allowed to be reinforced, meaning you're only validated, your I am coming from your strength is validated when you're appeasing them, you're pacifying them, you're turning. What happens if your head turns the other way? Are they doing the same for you? And then here comes your cell. You become almost like foreign to yourself. You have the dissociation phenomena. I'm having an out-of-body experience. I'm super agitated all the time. I want to be alone. I can't stand being alone. I need to be alone. And that so this is boundary negotiation. You're negotiating and so you have to get away from all those toxic drums of, it's like a field full of 50 gallon toxic drums. You want to go set up house on top of that? No. Okay, then yes or no. If you want to live a toxic life, you got to commit. You got to get really clear. Do you want to lead a toxic life? Let's be clear, in the privacy of these videos, or no? Do you want to come back to that place within and get your I am and give it, hey, I'm going to relate to you now. I'm going to take charge. I'm going to take this over, which means you're going to start validating your strength. Okay? Everyone listening to this, we've been through a pandemic in our lives. Whoever thought we were going to have a pandemic? That it required, and all these other atrocities and traumas, and how do we negotiate that? How do we reset this pandemic, these relationships? It's required a lot of change. Did the narcissist, so this requires a lot of change for you. Did the narcissist, let's get some other things going here. Okay, toxic needs, okay. And you know how they're going to live in you. You know how their toxic needs, okay, I know this is strange, but we gotta make this real. Okay. So it doesn't mean that they're toxic needs because they're bad people. You can throw that out like Johnny Carson. You can throw that out. They're not toxic people because they're evil or whatever. They're toxic just because of their effect on you and what they separate you from. So if this is like your strength, and just meaning You know what you like to do, and you don't have to explain and justify yourself. Or if you know your strength, your joy, your needs. I mean, and those are your needs. Your needs are strengths too. They usually, you have to realize how these have been reformatted or reinterpreted. Your needs can oftentimes be reinterpreted by a narcissist. In other words, you want something normal. It's just like, hey, I want that in a paper bag. You know, the 17-year-old Czech person is going. You're like, oh my God, this person who is the youth of all energy is complaining that they have to open up a paper bag. They're like, you think that that's a lot of work? Like, that is their interpretation of you are too needy. Is that, I mean, that is a shame on them, man. But would you ever say, well, shame on you? No, because you have a certain sort of respect of boundaries inherent within you. Hey, you don't lose your cool and start looking like a wacko. That's not going to help. But so in other words, or they'll interpret, your needs, or they won't want to help you. Like, let's say you're really excited to do something. You're a kid, it's your payday, and you just put all your allowance together, or it's even your adult payday, and you're like, whoa, let's go out to dinner, let's go. Oh my God, I want to get some new gym shoes finally. I really want to, and something, and they're like, or I want to go for this walk in this beautiful forest. Like, I want to unwind and do a picnic, and let's do something cool. Let's bring candles, and let's bring a blanket, and let's bring a pillow, and let's make it really cool. I go to a picnic. We're going to do it all up, and and they're like, oh no, there's too many mosquitoes. In other words, no, what are you, trash? What are you, stupid? What are you, dumb? What's wrong with you? They will just completely discount. Boom, you're wiring off, you're firing, you're getting excited, and then they're acting like it's too much work. Hey, I just got all these groceries, can I just, oh God, they'll roll their eyes, and then they're doing this to the other one. I know, these customers who want paper, I can't get over them. They're such a pain in the... so if you can just get outside of yourself for a moment and understand that this is how silly a negative narcissist evaluation of you can be. It can be so off, but what if you took that to heart? Oh my God, maybe I am asking too much for a paper bag. God, am I weird? Am I dumb? Am I really stupid to... Is this like, am I out of line? Is where I'm coming from completely bonkers? Like, and if the manager goes, if another kid were then to shake it, if you were to get negative, further negative reinforcement as you went out the door, but do you see, and then if the whole posse of the other baggers, I know, so that's kind of like how the narcissist runs things. And it's like being in a silly house of mirrors. They're reflecting back that you're too much. And then when you get outside, you're like, amen for me. Look at me, man. I just rocked. I just got out one last plastic bag. I'm helping to save the earth with that. And I like these plastic bags. They're easier to carry. They're sturdier. I like the looks of them. It's me. It's one choice I have in this world left. Why would you then get... Because you didn't... People do not know. It is so tempered with so many other different things that you cannot get perspective while you're in the midst of it. So that's why perspective work, energy work is so important, because after you've been traumatized, it becomes very difficult for people who have been wounded. This I am wounded because of you wanted a paper bag, and you're now... Because you wanted a paper bag, because you wanted to do something fun, because you wanted to have the real deal. You didn't want to be lied to. You wanted to get married. You wanted to have kids. You wanted to take care of their grandkids. You wanted... All these things were like, this all feels like a cummerbund, a cummerbund of pain. That is kind of like what it feels like, that you are held back. And then this is wanting to grow, and this is wanting to back it up, but because all this is still in your eyes, you can't get to just to this. You got too much of this other stuff going on. Do you see what I'm saying? So in your emotional body, and we're going to wrap up here, is to know that you have to now learn to welcome new B states. Welcome, meaning accept, live in, cohabitate with, draw to you, attract. Welcome in. Okay, so, and you need to learn to welcome in, the calm. That's going to be the antithesis to the crazy making. So in other words, you might be very triggered or displaced because of a lot of that's gone on. You might feel very displaced. So, but you're not, but you have to welcome in a new future, a new vision, and allow it just to shine and allow it just to be, because you need to get strong in alignment and have what you're doing with what you want to have to be fused together, like as if in a fusion together, meaning your recovery date means you have to welcome in certain feelings of strong where you have felt weakness before. So let's just say example, you really just wanted to go for ice cream and have this casual relationship, and that's where you got this. So maybe your recovery date where you take 2 hours just for yourself blocked off to totally unplug. I mean, off the phone, off the computer, off everybody else's schedule, literally disconnect. It might, get everything disconnected. And for 2 hours, a recovery date, meaning nurturing in and welcoming in a B state, oftentimes that's the antithesis to this. So you can learn to strengthen your cells, your I am on the feeling kinesthetic state. So for example, you might have a high level of anxiety, and you're unsure of yourself. That's what that is. I'm unsure of myself, meaning if it's a hidden something that if something happens, what do I do? So part of you hasn't resolved that and grown or gotten to the next level. So that's what your recovery date is. I don't know how to, let's say you want to be calm, you want to be strong, you want to feel that you deserve respect, self-respect, and you're carrying yourself and feeling what that is like and doing what you want and then giving yourself positive feedback. Great idea, you say to yourself. Great idea, peace and harmony, that you're reading this book. This is great knowledge. This applies to reinforcement of the tools that you've been thinking on. For example, then I'll say to myself, oh, wow, okay, so what I've been working on and sort of nurturing and coming from the roots, this sort of reinvigorating of your senses, including your metacognitive, your metacognitive, your ability to think about what you're thinking about and be what you're being about. So those other layers, your recovery date is inhabiting, meaning I am inhabiting that B space. So it's usually a different character, a different feeling, rather than feeling down in the dumps. Then maybe you might put on a really bright shirt, maybe some bright shorts or something, some good shoes, and take it out for a run. You're taking not a run, but, in other words, you're wanting to feel, behave, and be, and you're giving yourself a time to do this. So let's say I need to become more pious. So your recovery date might be taking a tour of some beautiful churches in the area, or going to a religious bookstore, or going to something that is all about that. And maybe you need to take a retreat, and so you investigate that. Your recovery date could be that. Maybe you need to strengthen your I am, and especially maybe, in food, in sharing food. Maybe you want to bring out your inner cook. So you might then, you might want to take yourself out to a great lunch or dinner where there's a great chef there, and you're preparing some and getting some new ideas for ways for you to fire up your cooking. Or you might get some new cooking utensils that are next level strength for you, that are better than what you had before. And continue to do that, because it needs to be coaxed and it needs to be nurtured into action, behaving and being, and then your I am will be able to be all about it. It's in the repetition, the rehearsal and repetition and consistency, that you will refine and become, and be in your strength and be in that nucleative sort of engendering state where you'll have new ideas. You'll have a better discourse with yourself. Great idea, Anne, you say to yourself, or great idea, Don, that you went and got these sketchbooks, because now you love these sketchings, or you love to read these comics. Or great idea that you picked up this new clothing shirt. This makes me better befit who I want to be. I'm showing up for the job that I want to be hired for. I'm a person who deserves respect. I'm not looking for the next dysfunctional relationship. I'm looking for what is a functional relationship, and what does that feel like? It might be new. Peace and harmony, I've never had that before. Well, let's do a recovery down, and then you can begin to see, trust, and feel yourself. You begin to have better trust of self, knowing how to, and then be more protective of self, which is then will help engender self-respect. So if you can engender and experience that, you'll see that other people will join you there in your self-respect. And this is what you're looking for. This is what you need. This is what you've been deprived on. But it might be uncomfortable, and albeit labeled as very scary. It might alarm you, concern you. I don't think I can do it. Even though you can, you might be having a lot of these funneled ideas that are still wiring from the previous relationship. So get to know really clear the difference between those toxic and sort of your being state, which can be just a pure sense of being. In just pure yellow, you can just say, I am pure strength, I am pure light. And that is good enough. And that is where you'll meet your best self, your best friends, and you'll take it to the next level, and you'll be more in charge, and you'll develop a feeling of better boundaries and standards. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate to the channel for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support. Your donations and your positive comments are most welcome. It is so great to hear from you, and I'm so glad that you found the channel. Have a beautiful day. Be it all.